showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 190 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming back week after week as I chat with people here in Salt Lake City, find out their story, find out what they're up to. Today's episode, Brian Bingham joins me. He's a local musician right here from Salt Lake City. We sit down, we chat, we find out his story, we talk about his music, life, what drives him to keep creating. We even play a few songs, a few tracks of his music, so you're going to want to make sure to stay tuned for that. I'm going to be playing that here in just a minute. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor. We have a brand new sponsor for the podcast, 50 West Club and Cafe, located right in downtown Salt Lake City on 50 West Broadway. The cafe is open daily, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and on Saturdays, 11 to 2. Delicious food and tons of live music and comedy in the evening, including one of my favorites, comedy open mic on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. You can usually find me there in the crowd watching. Maybe one of these weeks I'll actually get up and tell a few jokes, so you're going to want to make sure to go check that out. And who knows, maybe the week you go will be the week I get up and share a few jokes with everybody. You can find Club 50 West on Facebook. I'm going to put the link on the show notes for this episode. Support 50 West. Tell them you heard about them on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I know a lot of you haven't even been there yet. I know a lot of you haven't had the opportunity to check them out. Lots of events, lots of stand-up comedy, lots of music. And speaking of Club 50 West, you've heard me talk about I Am Salt Lake Live. That's where it's going to be at, right downtown, Friday, October 16th. Doors are going to be at 8 o'clock. Show's going to start at 8:30. Tickets are only $5 at the door. This is the first I Am Salt Lake Live. I'm really excited for it. Hopefully you guys can all make it out. I'd love to meet each and every one of you. I'd love to meet the listeners of the podcast. We have some great guests on that evening. I'm going to be chatting with Kerry Jackson, Paul Duane, and Levi Rounds. It's going to be a really good evening. Something a little different for the podcast. We are going to be recording it, so you're going to want to make sure to be there for the first I Am Salt Lake Live. Also, I want to tell you, get some questions ready. I'm going to ask for audience questions that evening. So come out prepared with some questions. Again, that's Friday, October the 16th at 50 West Club and Cafe, right in downtown on 50 West Broadway. 50 West has a full bar, so come out, grab a drink, and enjoy the show. Like I mentioned on today's episode of the podcast, Brian Bingham joins me. We sit down, we chat at the American Musicians Radio Studios. So thank you so much, John Farmer and the rest of AMR for letting me use their studios and offices to record the mini episodes of I Am Salt Lake podcast. Go support them as well. Check them out at amr.fm. I'm going to quit chatting. I'm going to quit all this here, this intro, and let's jump in to the conversation that I had with Brian Bingham as we talk music and find out his story. How you doing? How about this weather? It's slowly shifting into fall. I usually like to kind of start at the beginning, kind of work your way up to where you're at today with music and all of that. So, why don't we just kind of start right at the beginning, where you grew up? Did you grow up here in Utah? Where are you from?
Sandy, born and bred.
Right in Sandy. So, you lived here your whole life? And
yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, what, did you move away at all, or?
I was LDS and I went on a mission, California. Okay. So I was 2 years in California.
What? Where in California?
It was the Carlsbad mission. So I was in San Clemente, Ramona, Poway. Trying to think. It's been a few years.
Okay. I grew up in Ventura, so
just a little south of that.
Yeah. So I'm a Southern California boy, but I've been here in Utah over 20 years without my slight jot to the East Coast for a little while. Did you have a big family? A lot of brothers and sisters?
5 brothers and sisters. And
where do you fall in? Kind of middle or youngest?
I'm 5th, so 5th out of 6.
Did you get along with your siblings?
Now I do. Yeah.
Now you do. As when you were younger, we
were all pretty close in age growing up, but yeah, we all get along now really well. Actually, we're all pretty close.
So just so I can get this kind of picture painted in my head of Brian as a young boy,
Right.
What were you like? Did you get into trouble? Get good grades?
Not really. I was quiet.
You were quiet.
I was just kind of kept to myself. I'm very independent even from the get-go. And so I would just, if I had, some Legos or G.I. Joe or, something to play with, I would just be off in the corner having my own little self-created adventure. But I spent a lot of times outdoors when I was really young. And then, kind of went from there. But I really enjoy being by myself. I'm very much an introvert, which a lot of people don't get because you have to be.
I get it, man. I'm an introvert myself. I love people, but I need that time alone
exactly.
to just decompress, to get away, to recharge, and then get back out there, and I can't just go. What was your first musical instrument? I mean, how young of age were you exposed to music?
My history with music is a little odd, actually. I didn't really even listen to music until I was like 13.
Like growing up, it wasn't in your house?
It was like background stuff, and I would just listen to whatever radio station my sister listened to. But it's when I was about 13 that I started to hear music for the first time, and I wanted to be a rock star from the time I heard music. I mean, I grew up I started with oldies, and so I'm a 13-year-old in the 90s listening to 94.1.
Was that just because it was the house? Like I know with like my mom, I really wasn't allowed to listen to a lot of music. It was more like if it was church hymns or something like that, because in her head there was music was evil.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that. My parents are both very religious, but they're both musicians too. They both sing, and my mom played piano and keyboard and organ for her whole life. So I kind of grew up around music, but not. I mean, I just didn't listen to it. It didn't connect. You didn't
care about it.
Yeah, all my friends liked music, and I preferred G.I. Joes and Legos.
So at 13 years old, what were you first? Do you remember any of the bands or musicians you were exposed
to? It was oldies.
Okay.
So it was
Beach
a lot
Boys.
of the 50s and 60s is where I got my start in music. Because the music was so, I don't know, pure is the right word, but kind of simple. Like there was a guitar and there was a bass and there was drums and there was a vocal. Like it was just kind of that mix of the frequencies that you need to have music. But it was all about the melody. It was all about the words. And that's guided me pretty much my whole career in music, is that simplicity and that kind of raw sense about music, which I really enjoyed. So the oldies, I eventually started listening to the alternative rock, because all my friends would
pretty quick
change my station whenever they came over on my record player.
So you had a record player at 13?
Yeah, I dug it out, and I think I had some Mormon Tabernacle Choir and then about 30 Carpenters albums. That's all.
Can't complain there, man.
And so I'd listen to the radio on that mostly, more than anything. But yeah, I was just tuning it in.
Did your friends make fun of you for having a record player?
Yeah, because it wasn't vintage. It wasn't cool back then.
Yeah. So we're probably about this. I mean, what are you, early?
32, yeah.
32? Yeah. So yeah, we're pretty close. I'm almost 38. So it's kind of, I know how it was back then. I mean, record players, you were, what are you doing with a record player? Now it's like
it's the hip thing to do. But back then I was pathetic. But I was poor, so,
Sure.
Any way I can hear music, I'll hear it. And the record player had the biggest speakers. Like I had my clock radio, but that was worthless. So if I wanted speakers, if I wanted loudness, I had to do the record player. So
then, at what age then did you say, "Hey, I want to start creating music"? I mean, where did that come from?
Immediately.
So at 13 years old,
I wanted that, and then I saved up. I played 13. That's 7th grade. So 7th grade is when I started playing clarinet in the middle school band. And I wanted to play saxophone, but the music teacher, Mr. Vell, Roloff Vell, I think, one of the biggest influences in my music, but I just call him Mr. Vell, at Union Middle School in Midvale. He's like, so start on clarinet and we'll graduate you to saxophone at some point. Because I thought saxophone was the coolest instrument ever, with the curves and the brass and the shininess. And
sure.
13-year-old, you don't have an extensive opinion about why it's good. But that's what I want to play. So I started in that. And so that's what, but I guess my first initial, if I had go back even further, my mom had a ukulele. And so I would go when I was like 3 and 4, and I'd just pluck the strings because I liked
You like
fact
the
that
sound.
I would do something and sound wouldn't come out of it. It was this control factor of this is when I do that one and now I can do this one and the next string and that kind of thing. Didn't play it, didn't pick it up or anything. I think it broke it at one point because you're young and you're stupid, you know. But yeah, and then a recorder in the 4th grade was a big deal because now I could play melodies. And it was like hot cross buns. It wasn't anything advanced or exciting or even good, but It was that melody that I could play now, especially Christmas songs. I've always loved Christmas songs. And so I could play that on my recorder.
Does your mom play ukulele then?
She had one, but I don't remember her ever playing. So I don't know where she got it.
I find that to be such a fascinating. Can you play the ukulele now?
Yeah, I perform on it all the time.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I love it. I love the sound.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, and I got an acoustic electric, a nice tenor Lanica. Yeah. That's a nice one. But yeah, no, she's a very advanced pianist. So, she always played piano, but.
What would you say your main instrument now is? Guitar?
Guitar, yeah.
Guitar. How old were you when you picked up a guitar?
A senior in high school. So I actually started, in 8th grade, I guess 13, 14, I bought a bass guitar. And the story behind that is that I wanted to be a rock star. I don't really care what instrument I played. But my best friend already played guitar. So we saved up and he bought a guitar and I bought a bass and we started a little band. Like I was writing music before I knew anything about music at all, because that's my connection to music.
Self-taught then, really. I mean,
initially,
but you went in school
instruction.
But did you learn how to read music? Do you know how to read music?
Yeah, I learned in the 7th grade with clarinet. I learned how to read music, and at some point I took bass lessons, which really were just jazz lessons. And so I had the background in classical theory, but now I have one of the best bass instructors, Russ Hodges, who taught me jazz theory, and jazz theory is where you write popular music from. It's all about chords instead of keys and things like that. So, but yeah, that's it was bass lessons, but he was really teaching me, the theory and how to write in a lot of ways, even though we both were holding bass guitars.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because so many musicians nowadays, they don't even know how to read music. They don't understand all the, the formulas and the theory and all of that. So with guitar, then, when you actually picked up a guitar, did you take lessons of any sort through your?
No.
Kind of self-taught at that point. You kind of knew how to.
Guitar was self-taught, but I'd already played 3 instruments at that point. So it was pretty easy to pick up. And the reason I picked up guitar, I was a senior in high school, so it was part, to get the chicks, but it was also to be able to sing. And I wasn't a good singer for a long time, so that was a long road to be able to sing at all. But guitar was the way that I could write, because I'd advanced pretty far on bass by that point in 2 years, because I would play hours every day.
Sure.
And still to this day, bass is by far my most technical instrument. That I could walk into a studio and play pretty much anything you need on bass. But the other instruments, I just learned how to play so I could write with them. Piano and ukulele and mandolin and banjo, it's all so I can write songs.
Sure.
And so, where was I going with that?
Self-taught, lessons.
I've had some amazing vocal instructors. And like I said, Russ Hodges on bass, when I was taking bass lessons for him for a couple of years, I think it was a couple of years. But it was more theory than anything. Like I would play chords on the bass and he'd solo and back and forth. He was teaching me how to play over chords, which is all jazz theory is. Here's your chords. How do you play over the top of that? And how do you make that sound good? So I wouldn't say that right now I'm completely self-taught, but
sure.
I did start that way for sure.
Yeah.
And I think most people do. It's just the internet was starting, so you could get, stuff off the internet as far as music and chords and tablature and all that.
Absolutely. Now, a senior in high school, I'm just trying to picture. You said you were exposed to oldies. What was a couple of the bands you were listening? Just because it's always fun to go back and laugh at some of the silly bands we used to listen to.
So by the time, that was I think the first. I'm trying to answer your question well here.
Okay, well, I don't know. What was your favorite band as a senior in high school?
As a senior, so I started in oldies and I got into alternate rock. Pretty quickly, probably by 9th grade or so. So high school was all about the alt rock, which was Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam, and I think the first song that converted me from only oldies to like Next 96 alternative rock 90s stuff was a song called "Not an Addict" by Case Joyce. If you remember that one.
It doesn't. ring a bell or come to my head, but I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it. And people listening are probably, Chris, I can't believe you don't remember that song.
Absolutely. So that was the one where I was like, oh, okay, alternative rock actually has something here. And then I got really, really into Chili Peppers. The first real rock band I listened to was U2, because my brother had all their albums from the 80s and early 90s.
When they were actually good.
Yeah, exactly. He had through Octune Baby.
Yeah.
And so everything before that is still some of my favorite music ever. And so he lent them to me, and I accidentally kept them forever. So I apologize for that if you listen to this, brother. But yeah, so I was into U2. So I had like 8 U2 albums and like 3 singles, because that's all I could afford at the time. Then when I first got my first Discman, I was like 8th, 9th grade, whatever. And that's all I listened to for a long time. And then I went into Chili Peppers because I was a bassist. And if you play bass, you got to listen to Chili Peppers, because Flea's one of the greatest bassists of all time.
Absolutely.
So I was doing a lot of that really fancy tapping and like crazy fast stuff. And then eventually got into Pearl Jam, and Pearl Jam was my favorite for probably half a decade. I loved Pearl Jam forever.
Yeah. So you were drawing a lot of influences. I'm just trying to kind of figure out, some of your early influences playing music. What about your first band? I mean, were you playing in any bands by this point?
Oh yeah, 9th grade talent show we played.
Okay, well, I mean, so let's. What was the name of your first band? What was? Did you? I mean, that's the funnest part about having a band is coming up with a name.
So we were called for a time anyway. We were called Absolutely No Evil, and we did the whole like no evil on the eyes and the ears and the mouth, and so that was completely stolen. And then we were called, the first band name that we like promoted and actually played shows as was called Phalanx, which is an old Greek military formation they use where they overlap their shields in this big unit, and that's called the Phalanx. It was when the Greeks just destroyed everybody.
Yeah,
it's because of the Phalanx. Yeah.
Would just like get together with your neighbor friends or kids at school?
The guys I grew up with.
They all wanted to play music and said, "Oh, Brian can play the bass guitar." Or whatever.
Yeah, that same best friend Owen Esau is his name. We started together, and then we got Travis and Nick. And Travis and Nick and I grew up together. Like, I know them as long. And Nick's mom and my mom were best friends when we were born. And so I've known Nick especially, but Travis as well, for pretty much my whole life. And so the three of us played together for a really long time. I mean, through high school, and when I got back from the mission, we played again for at least a couple years before I became all acoustic.
Yeah.
And that whole route. But we were a rock band for a long time. Pearl Jam, Chili Peppers, all that stuff.
And did you play out? I mean, did you ever get to the point where you were playing shows at all? Kind of before because right now you're just doing kind of a solo project, right? Or you have sometimes a band.
Yeah, no, I have a band for sure. I just promote as my name.
Yeah. Yeah. What, but any bands before you decided to just go with your name? I'm trying to kind of get a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah, I went through a bunch of bands, lots of rock music. I'm completely influenced by folk and bluegrass and that now, but initially it was all rock and funk and blues, lots of blues in there. But yeah, I had a band. So after Phalanx, we were called. I kind of started my own acoustic group. They started as a 2-man acoustic thing and built and got a piano and bass and drums and all that kind of stuff. And that was called Something Else as a joke, and it stuck.
Yeah.
It's like, who's playing? Something else. Or, this band's Something Else, that kind of thing. And then we switched out all the members of that to the point where I was the only original member. So I don't know why I was like tied to that name anymore. And that's the first time I had hooked up with Steve Phillips. So now he's my manager, producer, but he's one of the best guitarists you'll ever see. And he runs the studio over at Full Fidelity in Murray. But he joined the band as a guitarist, and then we kind of took it further, and then we were called The Craving. And so there was I think that was the last full band with a band name that I was in. It's The Craving. And then after that, when we parted ways, because that was very rock and I loved it, but I'm just not a rock writer. Like, my songs don't sound like rock at all.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of went way more acoustic and started promoting under my own name.
Let's play a track from one of your, more recent, just Brian Bingham from one of your solo stuff, or I guess maybe we'll be with a band. I'm not sure.
It is the track that I want to play is called Graffiti.
Okay, Graffiti.
It's the first title off of the album that we did in 2013. called Not From Concentrate. So the song's called Graffiti.
And are people going to be able to, if people listening, can they find this song anywhere if they want to purchase it? Or
Absolutely. You can find it on my website. It's brianbinghammusic.com, or it's all over iTunes, CD Baby, Amazon.
Okay.
Pretty much if you type it in on any site, it'll be there for sale.
I'll put the links at iamsaltlake.com as well, so people can just kind of go back if you're listening to this for correct spelling of Brian's name.
Yes.
We'll play Graffiti. We'll come back, chat some more, but let's take a break and play the song.
I can see the future like it's painted on the wall. And I can see your smile as your hand finally meets mine. And I can see us going out. And every single time I can see the sad longing as we have to say goodnight. And I can see us falling in love like a perfect country song. And I can see the tear in your eye as I'm on one knee asking for your heart. And I can see our babies are growing up like us. And I can see the happiness in both our hearts, 'cause our lives are built on love. But you didn't call. You didn't call. No, you didn't call. No, you didn't call. It's like your city saw my graffiti as a threat and promptly destroyed it. And I can see the future like it's painted on the wall. Now my canvas is blank, but I've used up all my paint.
Any story behind Graffiti? Anything behind
Graffiti is
the
a
name?
great story. I was dating this girl that went to the Peace Corps. A long story short, we had kind of parted ways while she was gone, and then she was coming back. And I was so excited to see her, and we'd started talking again, and it was this great moment. And I just had built up this whole fantasy of like what I would say when I saw her at the airport, like how we would start dating, how like it would get serious at some point, you know, kind of like the long road. And we were chatting and whatever, and she got home. I don't remember all the exact times. It was like a Saturday morning, but she's all opposite sleep schedule because she was in Kazakhstan for 2 years. And so she didn't call me. And so I was like all bummed out, and she didn't call that night, and she didn't call the next morning. And then by Sunday night, I just kind of like, you know, my friend had consoled me, and just said she's going to call you when she's like through her family time. She's like, this is family time. When she's to friend time, she'll call you. Don't worry about it. So it's kind of pacified a little bit. And I went home, and in that time she had changed her status to dating somebody.
Her status on Facebook.
Which
Yeah.
to come by and find out they had met and been dating for months. I don't even know how long, like a long time. They were pretty serious, but she just hadn't changed her status. She hadn't told me about him at all. And so it was a complete surprise to me. And I was just distraught, completely distraught. And so that's where the graffiti comes from, is I just build up this whole big thing. And then she didn't call, and and then it's moving on.
I think we all do that, man.
Yeah.
I do that to myself. I'm known for that, just playing conversations in my head, and then they don't go right, and it just crushes you.
Yeah.
Where do you think you would be without music?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I never got into hard drugs or drinking or anything in high school, because it just, like, all my friends were doing that, but I would so much rather go home and play my guitar by myself. Even I wasn't even this big career thing that I'm trying to do now, but at the time I wanted to play. And so all the things that would get in the way of playing, especially the bad things, there were some good things that got in the way of playing, like family and stuff like that I do regret. But all the drugs and all the things that ruined some of my friends' lives, I didn't get into because of music. And so, I mean, I can't really answer that because I've lived more of my life with music than without.
Yeah, so it's hard to hard to imagine.
Part of me.
Yeah,
it's like, what would you do without your right arm? It's like, oh, I can imagine that, but I can't really imagine that.
Sure.
So it's I would say the simple answer is that it would be worse.
Sure. Have you had any opportunities to do any tours or play outside?
Yeah, a
of
little
Utah?
bit, mostly weekend kind of stuff.
Sure.
I think the most dates I've done in a row is 4 days in a row. So not an extensive tour. And that's the level I'm at right now, is to, trying to get my name out in Salt Lake and in Utah, but also trying to spread to more of a regional level. Yeah. And that's where the tours really start to go. But I've done a lot of them, but they're usually just 3 or 4 days. Lots of Idaho and, all around local, Wyoming and California, things like that.
Just little weekend jobs.
Whatever I can drive.
But that day job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, it's hard to.
Some way you got to pay the mortgage.
Yeah. Well, isn't that sad though? Yeah. Like you would think as a musician, it wouldn't be that difficult to make a living playing music, especially if you're good.
Right.
I mean, where would you like to see yourself go? I mean, with music.
Yeah, I have some very specific goals with that. Because when you get into music and you start to understand the music industry and basically how you can make money with music, it changes your whole outlook on everything. And you either decide, oh, that's definitely what I want, or oh, I don't like that aspect about it and I don't want it. A lot of people shy away from making money because they have to change to do that. And so I've been with different record companies and stuff that really kind of wanted to fit me into a mold that I just didn't fit in, and my music would never fit in. And as a writer, I wouldn't fit in this very specific, this is how you make money. And those are the people that are on the radio, those artists and those songwriters that make songs that win Grammys and things like that. It is kind of a somewhat cookie cutter. Yeah. Not to depress everybody listening, but it is, there's a formula to it, because why would you if you're making money off of something, like reality television or something, why would you leave that up to chance ever? Like, nobody does that. That's bad business. That's high risk and low reward. And so, with what I want to do, my goals in music are, my whole point is that I would like to do a full time.
Sure.
But I don't really need to make more than a couple $1,000s a month to do a full time. Like, that's about what I'm making at my day job. So it's, if I can make at least that, anything on top of that's going to be frosting. So that's kind of my goal, is to touring and albums and getting my name. Like, I wouldn't mind being a national act, but if I'm just regional but can make a living off of it, then
why not?
I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I am happy, but that's how my happiness would continue.
So obviously you write the lyrics for your music now. Is there a place or a time of day, or what helps you write the best in your opinion? Like, how some people write better in the morning or at night, or write better at a coffee shop or maybe in the woods. Yeah. Do you have a special place that you like to do?
Yeah, lyrically and melodic, my melodies, I would say the best time is late at night, past midnight. That's when the creative juices really get flowing. But I'm generally too tired because I'm also an adult with a day job. So I'm too tired. I don't write it. Now that you ask that, I'm realizing that I write a lot of my music. Like, I'll write the chords and stuff first, which is a little backwards for most people. But I'll find some chords and find kind of hum a little bit of a melody, and so that I have somewhat of a structure, and then I write the lyrics to fit that. And I do all the lyrics at night, but I usually do where I find the guitar, the hooks and the chord progressions. It's usually when I haven't played for a day or two, And then the first thing that I play when I come back to my guitar is usually a song. It's really crazy. Like, it's the first thing I pick up, some little lick or some little whatever is where the songs come from.
If you could learn to play any instrument, like what's an instrument that you'd be like, that'd be really cool to play, but I don't really want to take the time. But I mean, it'd be a cool instrument to play. Do you have an instrument?
I would say, so my favorite instrument that I don't know how to play is cello. And that's why I've had a cello in my band for years, because Damien Rice was the first inspiration for like acoustic folk music with a cello. Single cello, not an orchestra, not like a section, but just a single cello. So I would say that's probably my favorite. And if time wasn't a factor and I had the time, I would say cello probably. More realistically, it would be upright bass, because I have a background in bass, and it's still the strings and the bow, the technique that I'd have to learn, but I could play bass with that. But I love upright bass too, and I don't know how to play that.
Let's play another track, and then we'll come back. I got some more questions for you, and you have another track you want to play here from some of your stuff, or?
Yeah, let's do another song from that same album called Tennyson.
I'll let you, if there's any meaning, that we'll share that when we come back, so people can check it out, listen, and then they can come back and check it out.
Is it better to never love, or to love and lose? Methinks Lord Tennyson never lost you. I'm just trying to get you out of my mind. My attempts are fruitless, so I think I'll stop trying. I think I'll stop. Move along. Move along. Think I had you once, must have been real. 'Cause no matter how hard I try, it's still you I feel. I'm just trying to get on with life. Move on from girl to girl. It's only you that feels right. It's only you. Move along. Move along.
Like we chatted about graffiti. Any special meaning behind that song?
Yeah, Tennyson's kind of fun because I stole that line. So, Alfred Lord Tennyson has a line that's better to love and loss, or love. What is it? It's better to love and lose than to have never loved at all. And so I flipped that on its back and said, is it really better? Because you don't know, you haven't lost this girl. And it was about this very specific girl that I was in love with for like a decade, off and on. Even between all my other relationships, I kept coming back to this girl. And I was finally getting to a point where I could get over her. And that's what this song's about. It's just, it's kind of about not wanting to get over somebody, even though you know it's never going to work.
Been there plenty of times, man.
So that's what the chorus is, move along. It's just move on, keep it going. Like there's more out there. Like this isn't it.
Yeah. What's a dream band? Like if you were contacted, like say during this interview, you got a text and you're like, man, you get to open for this band. Ooh. What would be a band like right now that you would just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm opening up for them?
Yeah, I could name a few. Glenn Hansard is then from The Frames is one of my biggest influence right now. Damien Rice just came out with a new album to tour with him, would be killer. My favorite band right now is actually a band called Lake Street Dive, which doesn't sound anything like my music. They're kind of a soul pop kind of thing, and I do this folky bluegrass kind of whatever. But I would love to play with them just because I'm obsessed with them right now.
Yeah. What's your biggest personal change that you've had to go through?
I think it's probably understanding the music industry.
Okay.
I went a lot of years with not really understanding how it works and still working toward it, but not understanding what that goal is because I don't understand what the industry. And so the biggest change is when I understood exactly where I could go with music and where I don't want to go. Being on the radio and being in the top 40 just doesn't appeal to me because that's not the same kind of music as what what saved my life when I was a depressed teenager and what kept me going when I was in my 20s and had nothing else. Like that kind of music is really what I want to make, that raw, simplistic.
But I'm sure if they were throwing, millions of dollars
honestly,
your way.
No.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I guess that's part of that change is that I realized that I don't care about money. Like the only reason I want money is so I can buy things. And I guess that's kind of true for everybody, but I'm not motivated by money. And I understand that some people are. If I was motivated by money, I would get into sales or like Wall Street or something where you can make really good money and it's all about the money. But music to me is not about the money. If I can make a couple $1,000 a month, I could do whatever I want. And I wouldn't have to answer to anybody, which is, I wouldn't have to, that song that just completely changed your life. Well, it's not going to play in top 40, so we're not going to pay you for it. Yeah. That kind of stuff just doesn't appeal to me. And really the thing I learned about the music industry is that it's all about revenue streams. So I have contacts in Nashville where I can send songs and I could sell a song. So I could do that and still be me and still be my own artist. So I'm a writer and I'm an artist, and those are two kind of different things. And so I want to be an artist because I like performing, but I'm a writer first and foremost. So I could sell songs that I'm not playing and sell songs that I write that are very rock and pop. I could still do that. And revenue streams, it's, all across the board with sinking into film, and doing a lot of music in film as an artist, as a writer, separate but equal kind of thing. So,
yeah. What are some of your other hobbies and interests? What are some other things?
I'm also a filmmaker.
Okay, and I think we chatted about that before we started recording.
Yeah, I do a lot with film. I'm a partner in a local film company called Unknown Profit Pictures.
Well, talk about that. What is that?
So a lot of the videos they've seen of my music are from Unknown Profit because my film partner Colin Rivas is a big fan of Brian Bingham music, and so he does a lot of the free stuff for me, which I love him for. But we mainly do a lot of music video stuff, especially live session is our bread and butter. But we do some like official music videos, and we've even started to do film, which we did a short recently, which is based off of one of my songs that I wrote and directed, and it's called Stay. So you can check that out on our YouTube page or on our website, unknownprofitpictures.com.
And so like where would you like to, would you like to create a career out of that? Like if say that was to take off and music had to take kind of a back seat, would you be okay with that? Because you could still play music.
I'm a little obsessive and controlling, so I could do both.
Sure.
I'm one of those people, you see people that you're like, you have two careers. How do you do that? And it's people like me that are just always, their brain's always working.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing is that I love music a hair more than film, but I've loved film since I was a kid, and film's always been. And in fact, it was my mom that really got me into thinking, do film as well as music and kind of combine them and do this whole thing. And I don't love film enough to want to corrupt it, if that makes sense. I love music so much. You could do whatever you want to my music, and I still know where music and I stand. It's that complete infused bond kind of thing. So I could go, and I've gone the path of a bit more pop-centered and a bit more money-driven kind of music. And I still love music so much I could handle that kind of thrashing to my soul. And I could do that in music. It would be a lot easier to make a career out of it, because anything you do for money, you're eventually going to hate maybe. And so you want to avoid that. I mean, that's kind of the whole point, is doing something that you love. But to make money off of music, you might have to change it a little bit. And I love film so much, but almost not enough to want to change. Like, to do film commercially would be awful. Like, to work in a big studio and have zero control over what you're creating would just be horrible for me. And so that's where I like film right now. Between Colin and I, we're doing exactly what we want to do. And we have this path of, we can only take the projects we want, and we can turn down stuff that we don't want to do at all, except for like photos for like family weddings and things like that. Of course.
Do you do photography as well?
Yeah. Because we use photography cameras for our film stuff, so we've kind of got a experience with that as well.
And you're all self-taught with that, or did you do any schooling for
no,
film?
Colin went to school. He has a degree in filmmaking. Yeah. And so he brought me on to the company because I had a lot of experience recording audio and doing a lot with audio. And so he's like, well, we need an audio guy, plus you write and direct, so let's do this together. And so we now direct together, which is really cool because he loves the technical side, does all the cinematography, but also sets up, he writes as well. And so we both are writing our music videos and our shorts, but then I can handle the actor side because I've always been intrigued by that. So I can't act worth anything, but I also love it so much that I can explain it to somebody that's good at it.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. And as a control freak, I love directing because everybody has to listen to you all the time, and it's awesome.
Do you have an all-time favorite movie? Like that movie, that go-to movie, we got to watch this. I mean, even if it's a guilty pleasure type movie,
I with favorite movies, favorite music, I always kind of have a top 5. And so top 5 with film.
Okay, top 5. What's your top 5?
I would say I love movies like Crazy Stupid Love, Silver Linings Playbook, that are romantic, but also have this really deep story that feeds it. I love the Coen brothers. There's a film that they did somewhat recently called Inside Llewyn Davis.
I haven't seen that one. I love Fargo, though.
Yeah.
Fargo was...
Yes. It's about a musician, and it's not to give too much away. It's kind of about a musician giving up, and so it just hit home so hard, and because it faces you to the things, all the reasons you would stop playing music, not necessarily because that's what you're going to do, and I'm not going to stop, but it just hits so close to home on so many levels, and there's such amazing filmmakers, and their music in their film is always. I would love to infuse that at some point where I can be making music for film. Yeah, that would be the most commercial I'd ever really want to go with film.
I think that was only a couple movies, though, right? Were you going to do your top 5?
What else do we got? I like classes like Dumb and Dumber. You can't go wrong with that. Put me on the spot now.
No, it doesn't matter. If you don't have 5, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
I was just curious,
Braveheart. I love the big classics. I love the Avengers. I love anything that's a superhero movie. So there's that. My favorite top movies are the ones that Garden State, things like that, which have a phenomenal story.
Great soundtrack too.
Great soundtrack, but can make you think and make you laugh and make you cry all in the same film. Like, that's my favorite ones. Our comedic dramas, I guess you could say.
Do you have any embarrassing moments on stage or when you've been performing live, like an embarrassing moment or most embarrassing?
Yeah, I don't embarrass very easily. Which I get asked that kind of question a lot, and I always feel bad because I just, like, when embarrassing things happen, I see the comedy in it immediately. So I'll usually show people, and it doesn't become embarrassing because I'm making people laugh.
You just play it off.
I would say what should have been embarrassing, I had my pants ripped pretty good, but it was after a show. And so I was cleaning up on my stuff, and I bent down to grab my pedal board, and from the crotch down to about my knee, it ripped. and I didn't have any pants, and I was like, had plans after that. So I like ran, it was at Sugar House Farmer's Market, and I ran down to Pibbs, and I'm a bigger guy, and Pibbs is pretty hipster stuff. So I bought literally the largest size pants that they had, because it was the only ones that I could literally button up. And so I bought those, which is funny because ever since then I've bought pants that are a little bit smaller. I mean, I don't wear skinny jeans by any means, but I understand now a little bit how my body's supposed to work with pants, and not the big baggy ones that make me look even bigger, but like the tighter jean, kind of thing. So that ended up being a good story. It's not really embarrassing, but
hey, your jeans ripped though. Nobody wants their jeans to rip in public.
Nobody saw though. I mean, it was just kind of like if you're behind me, you could see my thigh, but other than that, it wasn't. That's as embarrassing as I get, I think.
Sure. What about your family? I mean, are they pretty supportive of your music? I mean, do they ever come out and?
Yeah, definitely. And when I was younger and I wasn't very good, I'll admit my music wasn't good always.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I lived at home. So we'd play this really loud, obnoxious rock music till 10 p.m. or that's when they cut us off, is right at 10, boom. And so they were less hourly supportive back then, but the fact they let us play there, once or twice a week for the whole time I was living there in my 20s, that's really supportive. They would argue about it. They'd tell me to get a real job, things like that. But that underlining backbone was always there. And then once I kind of broke out and started going by my name, started doing more acoustic, softer, melodic stuff they could listen to and enjoy. I remember the first show I did where my mom would, I saw her singing my lyrics. So she liked the song enough that she was singing back to me, which was kind of cool. That was a big moment. It was about 12 years into my quote unquote career, but it was a big moment for me.
Yeah, man, that would be pretty. My
extended family, they all love it, that kind of thing. They're very supportive.
Awesome. It's always good to get support from family and siblings and friends. And,
absolutely.
Obviously this is a Salt Lake podcast. You've listened, you know how it works. I always ask people, what's your favorite thing about Salt Lake? Like, what do you like it about as a whole?
I think my favorite thing, I live in the valley, and I always want to live in the valley because I love being surrounded by mountains, like that whole like kind of enclosed, all encompassing. It feels like community, even if you don't know anybody, because it's all there. It's all together.
Yeah.
So I would say, the view,
beautiful views
as
here,
much as, because there's a lot of good people here, and there's a lot of like cool events and stuff, but there's good people and cool events everywhere. But what Utah has that other places don't, or they don't have in the same way, is these gorgeous mountains, and it's lots of smog and lots of brown, but there's also lots of green, and I like that. So
that beautiful winter inversion that we're looking forward to.
The seasons too. The seasons are important to me. I lived in California for 2 years, and more than anything, I just missed the change. Yeah. I don't really like being cold. I don't really like being hot. So California is amazing because it's like 70 all the time, but I get bored with it. Like about the time I'm so tired of being sweaty, fall hits, and by the time I'm just done with the snow and done with the cold, spring comes, like that kind of, I really enjoy the seasons.
What about favorite local eating spots?
Since we're over here, I love Yoshi's. I didn't get into sushi till I was, probably 25, 26, but I love Yoshi's. Yoshi's is my favorite sushi place, and every place I eat sushi is amazing, but I go to Yoshi's most often. I don't eat out a ton.
Well, I didn't know if there's any, go-to places, where people are hanging out with Brian, you're like, man, they make a killer sandwich, or they make, some great, sushi like you recommended.
I'd say Yoshi's probably, but I don't know. I like some of the chains too, like Jimmy John's and
Jimmy John's is good, man.
I'm big into sandwiches, so anything that has a good sandwich is okay in my book.
Is there anything that you would like to see different about Salt Lake? Anything that you're just like, gosh, if this was just this way, it would be ideal.
Well, I understand that this is completely biased, but my big thing about Salt Lake, and really any town, but I know that Utah's a little bit worse at this, is just the music scene. The musicians are really tight knit. I mean, there's a couple people that are in it for themselves, and they'll step on your neck just to gain an inch, and they're always going to be there.
Sure.
But the ones that are connected are really, really connected, and that's awesome. But the scene, I've noticed it a lot, that generally people only go to shows if you know somebody in the band. And there's not a lot of really good venues for, hey, I don't know anybody, I'm just in the mood for music, so I'm going to go here. there's a little bit of that, obviously, but not a ton. I think we could do that a lot better. Is having places for new music and having places for really great bands that nobody's heard of.
Kind of like an area of town. Or, you know, that bar is known for...
But it's hard to make money off of that because nobody goes out unless they know somebody. And so you set up a place like that. What we really need is everybody to go to it, to everybody, and to tell their friends about it and spread it that way.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you want people to check you out, but I mean, is there like any places that you would be like, keep an eye on what music comes to, you know, this bar, this venue, because they're, you know, or any, I don't know, band, some way. What would you recommend for people that are new to Salt Lake or new to Utah, or don't really know much about the local music scene? How would you tell them to find out more?
You know, it's a good question, and
it's a loaded question.
It's
I realize.
A loaded question because you know, and I'd still like to work, so I don't want to name any venues that aren't good at it. But I think all venues could be a little bit better at getting the word out. And outside of the state, venues are kind of the hub. And so bands come to the venues, audience comes to the venues. And here it's a lot, the venues need to make money. If they don't make money, they don't survive. And I understand the business side of it, but they're set up in a way where they, you know, like a lot of them are pay to play as musicians. And it's like, no, you should be paying me to come play there, and then the people pay you. Like, you're setting it up as the venue. Like, your job is to get the people there. It's not really my job. Your job is to get music that people want to come see, and that's part of where Utah doesn't work, is that people only see them if you know somebody in the band, kind of thing. Until you get to a certain level, until everybody knows you, but it's really hard to get that level. So I don't know if there's like a single venue that I could name out where like, oh,
or is there a website? I mean, besides your own, obviously. I mean, is there like a resource?
I would say, and not just to self promote, but one of the things that me and my film partner we are trying to do that a lot. And we just this past week filmed this series. It's the second annual, so we did it last year. This is our second time. We call it "This Is the Place," and This is the Place music series, and it's all about the local music. It's all about showcasing what talent we have here. Last year, I think we had 8 different artists, and those are all on our YouTube channel, so you can hear them. They're doing a bunch of covers, a bunch of originals. We have some interviews with them. We have we're setting up an episode that we can, show in hotel lobbies or on local stations, things like that. And then this year, we're going to do the same thing. We're just barely filmed it, so it'll take a couple months to edit. But we had 15, we ended up having 13 different artists come in and they'll play their version of covers, all acoustic, and then they'll play some of their own stuff too. And so that's we're trying to network that way, trying to get bands to know each other that don't already know each other, and we have a lot of big names as well as a lot of beginners, and connecting those, which I think is also really important. And since I was once a beginner and I'm not a big name yet, so that's kind of what the point of that is. So that's a really good resource, is to connect to people locally. There's all the local bands have social sites, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And so connecting to all that, find out who your friends are listening to and see if you like them and connect to them and tell your friends about it. It's all about word of mouth and getting it out there. I don't know if there's, other than that, there's not like a single hub you can go to.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if you had any recommendations. I got my websites and things I check out, from time to time, or, I've been so heavily involved with it, but I know a lot of people, they don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
They're like, gosh, they don't know who to follow on Facebook or what to, because, obviously, if you follow certain people, sometimes they post more and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But, I know where to get this, pick up the City Weekly, see who's playing around that weekend or something like that. And a lot of people don't even know to do that, and it's like, we don't know these things.
The one thing that I think I would say about that is that, where to find them, I don't know. I mean, talk to your friends and kind of see who they're listening to, like I said. But the cool thing about local music that I think a lot of people don't understand is how accessible it is.
Oh, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and because you'll find artists that you like locally as much as anything you like on the radio. And they're that good and they're that amazing. And you can talk to them because they live down the street, you can connect to them on Facebook and send them a message and just be like, hey, I loved your music. Where are you playing? Who do you recommend? you that kind of thing. And like I said, the community of musicians that is connected is really tight. And so you come to me, you message me, and I'll give you 100 bands that you can go check out that are all local and are amazing, and you'll love some of them at least, and so it's really kind of cool to be able to, because you can connect to Dave Matthews and Lake Street Diamond like that, but they're not gonna like write you back and be
Dave, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, he's a little busy, so there's connect to your locals, because they love to connect, and they will help you find some great music for sure. And if they don't, send them to me and I'll yell at them.
How can people connect with you, Brian? I mean, online. You got your website.
Facebook is great.
Run down the list.
Yeah, so we got brianbinghammusic.com. And that's the main hub where all the music's posted. And then unknownprofitpictures.com is my film stuff. But yeah, just getting on any of the social sites, Twitter or Facebook.
Do you do Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
What's your name on Twitter?
It's Bingham Music.
Bingham Music.
They wouldn't let me do Brian Bingham Music, but I try to keep it all the same. So Twitter and Instagram is Bingham Music. And any of the other like lesser known sites, it's Bingham Music. And then Facebook and my website is Brian Bingham Music.
Awesome. And again, I'll get those show notes at iamsaltlake.com. That way you can go right there. Connect with Brian. Love your music. I mean, people, like you said, you can get it on iTunes. Is it in Spotify?
Yes.
So people can listen in Spotify,
Absolutely.
Obviously. You probably, go buy a CD.
I won't make any money off of the Spotify.
Yeah, he doesn't make any music.
I just want you to listen. It's not about every dollar. It's about connecting to what I've given you.
Sure. And then connect with you on Facebook. Find out when you have upcoming shows.
Yep.
Go check them out and let them know you heard them on I Am Salt Lake.
Yeah. Well, and we got a new album coming out, and so I'm with Full Fidelity, and we're almost done producing an album that's going to.
So it might even be up by the time this episode gets up. It's hard to know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I'm hoping to have it done recorded by then, but then we got to mix and master it and then print it, and it takes months. But keep an eye out for that, because we've added banjo and we've added mandolin and some of these other instruments that we didn't have before, which I'm really excited about.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up? I appreciate you sitting down and chatting. I mean,
awesome. I'm happy to be here. I think the message I want to get out is, go see live music, especially local. It doesn't have to be local, but especially local. Just go see live music and support the art.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Many thanks goes out to Brian Bingham for joining me and sitting down and chatting on this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to put all the links on the show notes for this episode at iamsaltlake.com/190. It's for episode 190. Links are going to be there. Reach out to Brian. Let him know you heard him on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Check out some of his music. And I know he's playing different venues in bars and whatnot here in Salt Lake City. If he's playing any places close by, go check him out. Support local music. Supporting local music is very important. It's just as important as supporting any local business. So check him out and buy one of his CDs if you have the opportunity. Really, really great guy. Hey, there's a few ways you can support the show. First of all, you can go to iamsaltlake.com and you can click on the iTunes link and leave the podcast a review in iTunes if you have not done so. That helps boost the ratings. That helps get it exposed to more people, and it just lets me know what you think of the podcast. You can also share any of your favorite episodes. Share them on Facebook or Twitter, any social media sites. Share them with your family and friends. You can also donate to the podcast. $1 or $2 goes a long ways, helps keep the project moving forward. You can see the donate tab right there at iamsaltlake.com. You can either make a one-time donation or a monthly donation, and anything is greatly appreciated and does not go unnoticed. Listen, though, the show is always free, so if you can't make any donations, not a big deal. Like I said, share any of your favorite episodes with your family and friends. Don't make this podcast your dirty little secret. I'm here each and every week, so make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not subscribed to the podcast. Drop me an email at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Let me know who some of your favorite people that I've chatted with. I'd love to know your thoughts. I've been doing this for 3 years, and I always love to meet new listeners of the podcast. All right, that's going to do it. You guys have a great week. I'm going to see you guys again next week. Like I said, my name is Chris Hollifield. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast.